The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz along with my co-host Tony Palmieri, who is back after like a month of not being able to be here, and we thank Paul Esslinger for filling in during Tony's absenteeism, but we are very, very pleased to have our familiar Tony back, so welcome back.
Thank you very much. Great to be back.
On this particular edition of Eye on Oshkosh, we're going to be addressing something that has been a very hot and controversial topic throughout Winnebago County for several weeks now, probably for about the last 6 or 7 weeks to be sure, and that is whether or not we should have a 0.5% county sales tax imposed. That's something that the Winnebago County Board is going to be deciding on probably within a few days of when this show airs, maybe a week or so of when this show airs. But as of right now, that vote is probably about 2.5 weeks away. Joining us on this edition of Eye on Oshkosh to discuss the sales tax as well as various budgetary issues for the county are two county board supervisors. To my immediate left is Kathleen Lennon. She's currently in her first term on the Winnebago County Board. And to her left is a longtime veteran from the county board, Joe Maehl. Kathy represents a section of Oshkosh. Joe Maehl represents a portion of Neenah, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, well, welcome. Thanks to both of you for being here tonight.
Our pleasure.
Well, sales tax. Let's just dive right in. It is something that has been discussed, debated, and even after the final vote in a week or two, it will probably continue to be debated. County Board or County Executive Mark Harris says he needs a sales tax, a 0.5% sales tax, in order to avoid cutting jobs, in order to avoid cutting services. Have each of you, I think Joe, you've been on record as saying you definitely want a sales tax imposed.
That's correct, yes.
Kathy, have you made your mind up yet on this? Or
Absolutely, and I was probably one of the first ones to say no.
Okay. Why?
So you're going to look at me first, aren't you? Because I think the people of Wisconsin are...
Just never mind.
I think the people of Wisconsin are sick and tired of taxes, period. Mm-hmm. I've had personal phone calls quite a bit, 27 to be exact. And I'll spend as much time as I can with people on the phone. 25 of those were for a no vote, asking me for a no vote. And 2 of them were for a yes vote.
Okay.
In the private sector, we've had to stay within our guidelines. You know, I went through a layoff. It was horrible. I was 29 years old. It was with the airlines. They had filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they eventually called us back for a 59% drop in pay, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to get into that, but it's a horrifying experience, getting laid off, not knowing what you're... And they recruited me in the college years, so I really wasn't trained for anything else, but and it was a good job back then, too. I'm talking about 30 years ago.
You're telling us your age now, Kathy.
Yes, I am.
They had planes then, right?
They sure did.
30
Sure
years.
did. You had to sort of crank on those propellers, though,
I'll
Joe.
tell you.
You remember that? But it was a horrifying experience, and it all worked out for the best. I stumbled onto real estate, which I've done for 21 years, a job that I really love. And so my heart goes out to anyone that loses their job. And I'm in the disparity between the county employees and the no's are, it's getting a little tense there. And it's like a family that's deciding on their budget. I just wish there would be a little bit more love between all of us, because this is going to be a really tough decision.
But back, Kathy, back 30 years ago, you think it would have been unreasonable to ask people to cough up a half-cent to save your job and the jobs of probably thousands of others?
The problem I have with a half cent, there is nothing small about $11 million a year. There is absolutely nothing in my mind that's small about that. When I put that together, one of my best friends that I've known for about 35, 40 years is putting together a mini mall for Skiers Outlet and his various retail stores, and he is absolutely horrified. I talk to him probably about once a week anyway, just because he's my friend. But he's been calling me just sort of mad about this. But this is everybody's job. This is, no matter how Joe feels, how I feel, this is our job to do this. I thought it was wonderful in the Daily Northwestern when they, and I don't agree with some of the points, but they had either citizens call in or they had ideas about where to cut the fat and things like that. I thought that was extremely admirable, just like a family. And I wish, and it's going to be some horrible decisions, but the private sector has made these horrible decisions for years and years now.
Well, Joe, you're on record, as we said in the opening, of being staunchly for a sales tax. Tell us why.
If I can give you some real background as to how it all came to this fruition point for me. When Tommy was, just before he left,
Tommy Thompson.
he commissioned what he called the Kettle Commission. That's 17 people. The idea was to refine state and county government, be more compatible, more fair. The commission came back after almost a year. The first thing that they said, that the court system in its entirety is the state's responsibility. The second thing they came up with, they had 16 recommendations. Second thing they came up with, Health and Human Services should be 100% state mandated, state taken care of, not mandated. That's what they're doing now. Anyhow, then when he left, Governor McCallum came in, appointed a Sheehy commission to do the same thing. And interestingly enough, they came up with, I think it was 12 recommendations. The first two were identical. Unanimously, the court system should go to the state, as well as human services. Now, the irony is that just before Tommy left, we, the counties, 72 counties, got relief, wherein the judges and the DAs are paid by the state. So that was relief, and that was fine. That's what it was all about. Since then, especially when McCallum came in, we, as residents of Wisconsin, listened to 4 or 5 months of radio and television commercials. The sky is falling, sky is falling. We're the highest tax state in the union, or one of the highest. And that's, maybe at that time we're number 5 as far as personal tax is concerned on the properties. Then and now we're about 19 out of 50 states in total taxing. That's a long way from 3 and 4. Anyhow, then at that particular time was the world's greatest fire sale, wherein McCallum sold the 20-year tobacco buyout for the state for 1 year. And the reason for it, I'm the big champion. I didn't raise your taxes. That $20 billion is gone forever. $20 billion gone forever, because that 1 year I'm going to be the hero and there's no tax raising. Our present governor concurs with the 2 findings. The point is, nothing has happened since that one relief portion came through. I have just completed a very exciting year as president of WCA, which is Wisconsin Counties Association. And I had the idea of let's resurrect this and bring it to the fore. Make Madison do what they said they were going to do, and certainly the governor. And so as a result, I went on a statewide campaign with the help of the WCA staff and went to the editorial staffs of all the papers, a lot of papers in the state. And almost in a unanimous form, the state agreed it should be on a ballot. I then went to the county board chairs, 71 others, asked them to put it on the ballot in last April. 68 of the 72 counties did. The punchline is 1,200,000 Wisconsin people voted. 86% said yes. Should the tax be, should the responsibility of the courts and the human services be, instead of on your present tax,
Right.
which you've been paying for years, should it be in the state, as the commission and the 3 governors concur?
Okay.
But it's not happened. It's just.
So the point is, right now, we're going to do the same thing. I think it's going to be a big session with the upcoming gubernatorial situation.
But so you
So,
are in favor of a sales tax here because why?
well, one reason is if there's any such thing as hysteria is when anybody mentions tax. And the reason for it, and I'm laying it off on the constant driving home. Oh God, we're just going to lose our home and all that foolishness. It's insulting your intelligence and something like that. Because the 0.5%, and if you look behind me or when you get a chance,
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit.
you'll see that 58 out of the 72 counties have got the tax, many of them since 1987, 88, 89. And when you go to Bayfield, Superior, Milwaukee, Green Bay, La Crosse,
But Joe,
all of
those
them.
58 counties that have that tax are facing some budget problems every bit as serious as ours.
well, some are and some aren't. And a good example of that is our friends in Waupaca County. The courthouse was literally falling down. They put the tax on. They built the courthouse, and they paid it off. The tax came off. It was grandfathered. Same thing happened with their jail. So they put it back on 2 years later and built a facility called the jail.
But isn't
You
this
know.
tax, by state statute, isn't this tax only supposed to be used for property tax relief? Doesn't the legislature give the counties the power to raise this 0.5 only for property tax relief? And that's not what Mark Harris is proposing, correct? I mean, he has property tax relief in his proposal, but he wants to use this money for saving jobs and you know,
Operational expenses,
operational
basically.
expenses.
One of the big situations that I would suggest that everybody watching call the Mark Harris's office and get this analysis. It's simply written, to the point, and there goes the states.
Yeah,
The state of Wisconsin is just falling, that's okay.
But anyhow,
it's because all those counties are top-heavy with taxes.
Joe, you think Mr. Harris makes a good case for this 0.5?
well, one thing that he doesn't do too much and should do a lot more, if the 0.5% sales tax goes in Winnebago County,
Uh-huh.
we are now at the levy is 589, 568.
Right?
So $100,000 home, you figure it out, you know. If it goes in, it'll be 518 the first year,
Right.
because we won't have a full year of tax. When it goes in for the full year of '07, the full year, it goes down 14%, 490, from 568 to 490. That's with the tax. And the other delightful thing of this, in my opinion, is that we do have Country USA and then a small group of folks come up for a month called Air Venture.
But you know, Joe,
They're
property...
going to help us.
Right, they
the
will.
strangers help
will.
us. And when you and I go to Madison, La Crosse, Eau Claire, you have no idea you're paying it.
Right, that's true. But you know, I don't like paying property taxes, but for people who itemize their taxes, they can write off their property tax payment. The sales tax is a throwaway, isn't it? Wouldn't you be better off with a little higher property tax than a higher sales tax?
Well, once again, the naysayers on our board get hysterical because the word tax is in there. You know, oh yeah, put it on the homeowner.
Are you hysterical, Kathy?
No. You can see I'm real shaken up right now. No.
But it does seem like you and a lot of people, I think, wouldn't you agree you had kind of like a gut level no reaction to this? Was there any scenario in which you would support this sales tax? Or was it a no, just before even Mr. Harris even made the case?
I was one of the first ones that went on record saying no. Yes,
It didn't matter what case Harris made.
Right.
Correct, yes, that is correct.
So you can't imagine a scenario in which this sales tax would be justified. What if it were 300 jobs, 400 jobs?
In the private sector, they can't all of a sudden grab money from something when they're in trouble.
But this is the public sector. The county has to provide services for all the county citizens, correct?
Yes.
So that if
understand
these people get laid off, it's not just them losing their job, isn't it? The county taxpayers possibly losing a vital services? Or do you think that we're overstaffed? Maybe we should be laying people off anyway.
It's my job and Joe's job and the legislature, and you can get as big as you want to or as small as you want to run this budget or to get this budget through. This is Mark Harris's budget.
Right.
And this is our job, and we're going to be working really hard for the next 3 or 4 days, however long it takes, getting this together. And it's not, when I get phone calls that say specifically what I should cut,
Right.
that's really not my job. That's everybody's job.
Everybody meaning, who do you put?
That's meaning no, that's meaning the elected officials.
Okay.
Or actually, this is our job to put this together, whether we impose the tax or not. I mean, and we're going to work this out, and we're going to work it out together, no matter what happens.
Well, there are a lot of supervisors. Well, I don't want to say a lot. There are some supervisors on the board who insist that the county spends too much money. And then when you ask them where is the too much being spent, usually the answer is somewhat vague at that point. Are you one of the supervisors who believes that the county is spending too much money?
I think that I'm on 2 committees. Joe's on many more. But it's funny because, of course, I would always protect my committees, and where Joe would be more apt to protect his committees, I think that's just human nature. That's as easy as that. And I'm not trying to...
What committees are you on?
I'm on the aviation committee, which usually gets it. Poor Parks, and I'm not on Parks and
Right.
Recreation, but they get it too whenever there's a crisis or a budget deficit. And I'm on the IDB board, Industrial Development Board.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the problems that I have with the property tax, or the sales tax rather, is when you are at the city level or you're on the school board and you are faced with the same kind of property tax freeze that the county is, they don't have this
Right.
mechanism. And is it fair that maybe city jobs will have to be lost, or jobs within the school district may have to be lost, because they don't have such a vehicle to help their budgets along? Yet the county can, as you called it, Kathy, grab money through this type of means in order to save jobs and services. How would you respond to that, Joe?
I think very specifically that if there's such a thing as a fair tax, sales tax is a fair tax. To single out property and homeowners to carry the burden is patently unfair. So it calls for a revision of the tax law. That'll only take 10, 12 years, I'm sure, if it ever gets started. So you can't do that. You can't go along with that. But I would suggest to Kathy, that the 25 people that called you and said no, what would their reaction be if you told them their real estate tax next year would be less 14% with the 0.5%? This is what we're talking about, is dollars on the real estate tax, what you and I or homeowners pay. And so the 25 who immediately say, no way, no tax, because we're already overtaxed and all that sort of thing, and I have great sympathy for that. But by the same token, when you explain to them what this is, what it means, forget the emotion about, for the time being, about laying off people, just doing that. The other thing is that's so important in my book. 30% is a very, very conservative figure that strangers is going to help us pay for this. That's the exact opposite of the property tax. If the 25 people that called and said no to Kathy, and I don't doubt that figure at all, but I would be really interested to see what they would say. Your tax bill this year is $2,000. It's going to go down 14%, and then the next year, 8, 9, 10. When you have the full year, the tax,
Can I
Sure.
just
tax year
jump in on
will
this?
still
Because
go.
Same question.
we might be, I don't know. But here's my concern, Joe, and I haven't, quite frankly, made up my mind on how I feel about the sales tax. You know, at first I was sort of adamantly opposed to it, saying, no, we have enough taxes. And, you know, I've been paying a little bit closer attention to what people like Mark Harris are saying. Will it impact my budget that much? Probably not. I don't know. But coupled with everything else, I think it has the real distinct possibility of impacting people's budgets a lot. But as far as the property tax relief goes, according to Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance, and this is the June of 2002 report that I pulled, 15 counties, at that time there were 49 counties that had the property tax, and now there are 58.
The sales tax, you mean? 14.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I keep saying property tax relief because I'm thinking property tax relief. But yes, of the counties, the 50, well at that time 49 counties that had a sales tax, only 6 provided some kind of direct property tax relief. And yet the state statute says that this money can be used only for property tax relief.
Okay.
So what happened there? Because I'm sure that in those other counties, they all said, look, what a great thing this is, you're going to have property tax relief, and then the better majority of them didn't. So how can we be assured that A, we're going to see property tax relief, and that it's going to be the knight in shining armor that we're told it is? And then I guess the second part of the question, Joe, is if it can be used only for property tax relief, A, why isn't it? And B, how can we use it for things like operational expenses and saving people's jobs and services?
Well, the figures I gave you are valid. 14% less property tax.
Well, that's what we're told,
You know.
but that may not actually be what happens.
Well, and
Because
again,
it clearly
I use,
didn't happen in these other counties.
so I use Waupaca because they're close. And as a good example on your question is, they, not to infer they got around it, but the fact that they did need the new courthouse, they did need the jail, if they went ahead and built that, then their property taxes would have gone up. It didn't go up because it was dedicated, meaning the 0.5% sales tax. So that's property tax relief. That's how it's, not to circumvent it, but just how do you interpret property tax relief. So anyhow, I was not surprised, but I was really so disappointed in the 4-page letter from the chamber, and knowing full well what their thinking is. It was a 4-page indictment of Winnebago County, and if you read it, it says we have just wantonly added on, added on. For the record, and it's no secret, 90% of Wisconsin residents have no idea how their real estate taxes develop. They're not dumb, but they have no idea. All they know is the tax bill has come in. And therefore, with that percentage there, your tax bill, mine, 45% of the tax bill is state mandated. Do you pay 1,000? Do you pay 10,000? 45%. So it isn't like Winnebago or the other counties are the bad guys.
Right.
It is
Really?
the people who are in Never Never Land in Madison. And once again, look at your tax bill, folks, and whatever the total is, 45% is what you have to have. And that's why, getting back to the mandate of 86% approval on those two mandates about having the state take it over, as they should.
Which they haven't done.
No.
But don't you worry, Joe, that if the county now raises the half-cent sales tax, it's telling the state, you can continue with these unfair mandates, and yet we will just find a way to raise money to pay for it. Wouldn't it be wiser for us to say, we're not going to raise this money? You're forcing us into layoffs. You're forcing us to go into the reserves, as Mrs. Vandehei did. Don't you think that if we raise the tax, we're telling the state, go ahead, keep dumping it on us?
And that's one of the big things that
That troubles me.
I'm speaking for Mark in that sense, that he doesn't want to use the reserve.
Yeah. But wouldn't this
And
be a
it makes-
time, wouldn't this be, you don't support using the reserves either, do you?
Boy, their rainy day fund, I guess it's raining. I
Well, see, that's
I don't
my
know.
fault. I mean, Jane took a lot of criticism, probably much of it justified, for going to those reserves, but I'm thinking, when would you go to them? Here you've got the
It's
state,
not the 90s anymore. The 90s were so good to us.
but here you've got the state legislature comprised pretty much of 132 hypocrites, right, who are, dumping on local communities and counties. They've put this freeze on
I'm with you, Tony.
without the consequences. So, Joe, wouldn't now be the time to go to the reserves? How much more rain do we need?
I think, God forbid, something like Katrina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the rainy
understand.
day. I mean, a pure, unadulterated disaster.
The other thing is, you said earlier that the sales tax is a fair tax.
If there's such a thing.
Right, especially when you look at the property tax relief that may come. But we have a ton of people in this county who rent. If you're a renter, you don't get any property tax relief, do you? You're just going to pay an additional sales tax.
Or your landlord will raise it,
Yeah.
right?
Right, yeah, because if the landlord gets a property tax relief, have you ever known any landlords that have cut rent after a property tax relief? I don't think so.
I wouldn't have. I've been
That's why I asked you.
21 years.
That's why I've asked you. I was saying,
Never done that.
Are you going to cut the rent? Your tenants are probably listening right now. Just kidding.
Probably doing the cameras back there, actually.
Right.
But see, the landlord, and I can speak to this as well, the
Yeah, sure you
landlord
can.
has other expenses too. Roads to pay for,
Oh, so you're a
and
landlord
city
also.
taxes that continue going up. So,
There you go.
and school board taxes.
tell you-
I just wanted to finish up on this one study here. There were only 6 counties, as I said, that had complete property tax relief. 15 counties were classified as having some property tax relief, and 21 counties showed no evidence whatsoever of any property tax relief coming from when the sales tax was implemented. And those figures are very disturbing to me because, like I said, I'm sure that their local officials told them that they would have property tax relief. And I'm not suggesting that anyone in this county is lying to us. I think that the full intent is to provide some property tax relief. I'm just not sure that we'd see it. And I have to look at stuff like this when I'm thinking about that. And I mean, I'm sure you can understand, Joe, that's a fair concern, because these other counties just simply didn't see it.
Right. It's interesting that several years ago on the board, one of our members who's still on the board, he and another supervisor posed the 0.5%. This was in maybe 88, 90. And they really were very sincere at that time. And it was well, it was a combination of things. It was moving the fairgrounds to where they are now, Sunnyview, and to dedicate the money then. Now, this same fellow who's still on the board, his neighbor came out of his house and literally jumped his frame and saying, whatever you do, you can't, the tax and so on. And so he won't touch it now, you know. So you've got the human element.
Yeah.
People want to be reelected.
Yeah.
That's an evil right there. The old story, in my mind, my heart, you have to do what you feel is right. And I also think the 25 people that you talk to, if they had an idea, a knowledge, that their tax bill will go down 14%, whatever the total is, and then on through the subsequent years, I think maybe, is that right? Because all these cities I ticked off earlier, La Crosse and Milwaukee, when you go down there, you have no idea all these years you've been paying 0.5%. No way. And by the same token, the irony too is the county just south of us, south of Kenosha and Racine in Illinois, has that huge, well, it's Six Flags America, and then this big shopping center. So they came out with their Christmas totals of Christmas '04. 65% of their gross was from Wisconsin residents, with 6.75% sales tax. People buy by emotion. They don't buy by the so-called logic. And so 65% of their gross sales was from us, meaning Wisconsinites, because they've got this wonderful facility. And for some reason, they didn't want to go up to Milwaukee. They went there. And so the tax schmacks. And also, Friday is a ritual that we all enjoy. It's called Fish Night.
Yeah.
And there's few people that eat steak on Friday, but that's, it's a tradition. Where are you going for fish? Do they have good fish? Oh, yeah. So 1 or 2 old-fashioned, sweet, or a beer, and the fish,
Sweet.
$20
Yeah.
minimum. A nickel, 5 cents. 5 cents. Oh, that's going to keep me, I'm going to lose my home. Please. 30%, which is conservative, of strangers coming through from Chicago to Oshkosh is going to help this. 30%, and it's going to be $14 million. I mean, on a full year.
Sure.
That's a lot of bucks. And so the idea, too, is the ramifications of laying off people is one thing. The old story, well, it doesn't affect me.
Right.
But what happens is then because of the unions, they have the wherewithal to bump people. And so some very talented, hardworking, sincere people,
I agree with that.
because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, would get bumped because that's the rules. And so those are the emotional things. Those are the personal things. When we have, what do we have, 1,200 employees, I guess, altogether, or close to that. And they expect to have an increase. Well, if the state can put a freeze on us, it's possible that we could put a freeze on that. But we've already voted them a raise.
If this
Not
sales-
much, but 3%.
Sure.
If this sales tax proposal passes, what kind of safeguards would either or both of you be willing to put in place to ensure the taxpayers in this county that the money raised is going to be spent for exactly what we've been told it's going to be spent for? Not some other projects that come up down the road that somebody decides they want to do because there's this big pot of money. And the reason that I asked that question goes back again to the numbers that I just recited. And I'm also thinking about, when you were talking about Illinois, Joe, I was thinking about the toll booths. You know, those toll booths
Oh,
heading
man.
into Illinois.
Yeah.
The number of
Oh, yeah.
pennies and cents that you have to pay continues to climb. And
Oh, yeah.
that money is supposed to be going to repair their roads. And honest to God, those people have some of the lousiest roads I've driven on,
Amen.
other than my street, in a very long time. You know? And so there is a classic example of where it doesn't seem anyway to an outsider that
Yeah.
the money is going to, for what it's intended.
Well, we could,
was.
you know, like the draft of the resolution, that can be altered, that can be changed, and putting in for 2 years to December '07, something like that. That's one thing. The other thing is specifically only for, you name it, not highways, but or something like that. But you
He's
name
not
it.
on the highway committee. I'm making a point. I'm sorry, Jim.
No, but that can be done.
Sure.
To answer your question, you know, about safeguards and assuring that it's not just going to go on forever and ever and ever. And the old story, and how many times have you heard it? Oh, they raised it from 4 cents to 5 cents, said it was temporary and it's never gone
Right.
off. You know, come on. The same guy is probably making about $4,000 more a year than he did when that first came in. And $4,000 is that's nominal. But
No, but if there is a sunset clause on a tax, I mean, it should be upheld, right?
and those that voted it in, again, I'm using Waupaca, and they did, and it was no pain. But they have it on now. And how many folks do they have there? What, 26,000 people? But they live for
It's
it.
small.
Yeah,
it's
and
small.
a lot of folks come up and fish in Chicago and so on.
Sure.
And
Joe,
we've-
Joe, you are one of the most eloquent defenders of the committee system on the county board. You know, people have said we have too many committees. You've defended the committees. You've defended the rights and responsibilities of the committees to make policy for the county. And that's why I'm shocked that the Personnel and Finance Committee, I believe it was that committee, voted 0 to 5 against the sales tax. How then is it even coming to the full board? A committee, the committee couldn't get one vote for this. Aren't you bothered, as a defender of the committee system, aren't you bothered that not one person on the committee voted for it and yet it's going to the full county board?
Well, yes, and
Shouldn't that keep it off the county board?
what they when that was brought up, in fact, Peck questioned that.
Yeah, he did. Rightfully so. I
Tom
think.
Peck, and their answer was, well, we wanted it to come to the board, but we don't support it. But that wasn't stated in their resolution. It could have been, and it would have cleared up all this foolishness.
But do you think it's a good precedent to set, Joe, that one of your committees, or one of the board's committees, can't even get one vote for something, and then have the full county board approve it? Wouldn't that be kind of a, almost an abuse of the full county board's power? Wouldn't it be like if Harriet Myers can't get a vote in the Senate, is it the Judiciary Committee that looks at the court candidate?
Correct.
Say she gets no votes in the Judiciary Committee, and then it goes to the full Senate, they wouldn't even send it to the full Senate at that point, right?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
But to answer the question, now you're going to get into personalities.
What's the personality struggle here?
On the P&F committee,
Well, there's 5 of them, right? They couldn't get one. Why couldn't they get one vote for it?
well,
Okay.
the election is in April. Well,
But these are intelligent people. They could make your argument that.
Wait a minute. I understand that.
Yeah,
not only that, but my good friend Stan Klein works for the chamber.
yeah.
Come on. You know? And the chamber is gung-ho against it. He has his check signed by that. You know? That takes a strong guy to say, the heck with you. Who signs my check?
And didn't the chamber come out with some inaccurate data?
No, especially when they said about the hiring.
That we had 300 more employees.
Oh.
They finally admitted, didn't they admit that that was false?
I believe so.
Yeah.
There was a
Totally,
Yeah.
totally erroneous.
Out of those 25 people who called you, Kathy, I mean, are most of them chamber affiliated, would you say? Were these like anonymous people who called? or
No,
No,
actually,
they're
half
Oshkosh people.
Oshkosh
There-
people, correct?
There
Yes.
is life after Oshkosh.
Yeah, we realized
We
that.
call it the northern part of the
You're
county.
so far up north.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
how
I'm
many
going to tell
folks
your
have called
brother
you?
and you.
Because you're up in Neenah,
Have
how
you had
many
any
folks
calls?
have called you?
Her brother
Is in his district.
and lives right the next street over.
Yeah.
Have you gotten calls?
4.
You've gotten calls for it?
No, I've got 4 calls.
Oh, 4
What
calls.
did they say?
And 2 for and 2 against. And I'd like to think that I sent this to the 2, and then talked to him. And he said, and it's the old story, when you come to describing how your tax bill is created,
Yeah.
you get that glazed in the look, the deer in the headlight look. I didn't know that. I know you didn't. And it's not that the folks are dumb, but here they read the headlines and they hear the gloom and doom and the hysteria of the sky is falling on the newspaper, who, by the way, was very, very helpful in that mandate voting we had here in April. And they were positive. As I said, most of the papers were throughout the state. And that's why we got such a resounding 80. There's no other vote in the history of Wisconsin where 86% of the people said yeah. 86% that voted. I think that's pretty exciting.
But it was just an advisory referendum.
That's right.
And the
And-
governor's not really leading on this. I mean, he says he supports it, but he's not really leading
Yeah,
on it.
well, not yet, because Green or Walker is going to come down hard on that, especially Green. But anyhow,
But Joe, I want to follow up on something that Tony said before. Don't you think it would, in fact, send a stronger message to Madison if you all just took a really hard stand and said, you know what, by God, you've imposed these mandates on us, but yet you continue to hamstring us and lock us up in what we can do here? Don't you think it would send a stronger message to them that they either need to stop with the unfunded mandates or they need to stop doing things like a property tax freeze?
yes, and it takes, the WCA, all 72 counties voluntarily belong, and it is a lobbying group. And they really do have the ear of the governor, and it's not, it's not negative. They even can sit down and talk sensibly to Senator Lassay with the Tabor and the Bill of Rights. And that's a magic sound. Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Yeah, I'm all for that. Who isn't? The phrase.
Yeah.
But how are you going to do it, and what are you going to do?
It's a great
I
bumper sticker.
digress a little bit, but the point being, I can digress for a couple hours.
We don't have that kind of time.
No, but I feel very strongly that if the people are aware that having strangers help pay for this, meaning the 0.5%, 5 cents on a $20 bill, and 1 million people come up in that month from all over the world for the EAA. Come on. I mean, just that's for openers. And then you also have the retail place. And then there's a fellow in Oshkosh-County that has a retail store in downtown Oshkosh and in Waushara. Waushara's had it for many years.
Yeah.
He said it's never been a problem.
But something that Cheryl said before, that if the city council or the school board need money, they have to go to the voters for a referendum. You know as well as I do, if you threw the sales tax proposal out to the voters of Winnebago County, it's not going to pass. So doesn't that suggest that it shouldn't pass? I mean, the people may not know where their taxes are going, but if the people don't want something, they shouldn't have it. Isn't that a principle of democracy?
That's right. And then also the, what do they call it, the third the state.
Yeah.
They should give both sides of the story. You know, come on, 2 columns each, and so on. Facts, 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 facts.
Oh, you don't think the media has done a good job of letting Mark Harris state his view?
In my opinion, no, because once again, it's immediate. It's immediate. The word is tax.
Yeah.
And when it's tax, oh God, it's got to be bad.
Why not go to the voters on this? Why not ask at least for an advisory referendum to the voters of Winnebago County? Do you want a 0.5% sales tax? The county board has the power to do that, don't you? You could send out for a referendum.
Yeah.
Would you support something like that, Kathy?
Sure.
Letting the voters?
Absolutely.
She'd probably even support a binding referendum. Would you support a referendum on this show?
Yes, by the same token, I feel strongly that when you're elected,
Yeah.
you take the so-called responsibility and then foist it off. You know, I spent 18 years in California,
Yeah.
and when I went into the polling booth, I had 4 things to vote on and 16 referendums because those clowns, in no way would they make a decision. Oh, you do it, because then we'll hear from the people.
Yeah.
And then you have all this
Yeah.
dialogue, a lot more than this, and on each and every bill, and while you're in the booth, you read it.
But here's what. Don't you think this case would be easier to make if Mr. Harris was able to say, all right, look, we raised the tax and then we lose no jobs. He's saying even with the tax, we're going to lose jobs.
We lost 19 last year.
So, what are we getting then? We're raising the tax and we're still losing. Well, he went from 140, right, without the
140
sales tax.
down to 77.
And now, do we have an official count now?
39. Gail just came from Madison today.
Right.
She said 39.
Yeah.
before.
Well, it's actually
That's without the tax. 39.
I don't know. I can't remember what
without
she
the
said.
tax,
All right.
but it's when you factor in seasonal workers whose
Yeah.
jobs would be eliminated,
Correct.
you factor in positions that are not going to be filled that
She
have
was
been
saying that too.
just vacated, it comes out to the equivalent of 76.5 jobs.
All right. Kathy,
Full-time jobs.
if Outagamie and Fond du Lac counties went along with this, would you then support it?
No, I still wouldn't support it. It's a tax. And there's nothing. Once again, there's nothing small about $11 million a year.
But if our closest neighbors went for it, then wouldn't that ease it a little bit? I mean, it's not like people could drive out of Winnebago County
I still think we need to work through it.
All right.
Otherwise, we're going to set a precedence. Cheryl said it. I think you said it twice now. Otherwise, we're going to set a precedence with Madison, and they're going to say, "Well, let's just keep on mandating." You know,
you guys are raising the
and you know, because they're getting the funds here.
Joe,
Enough is enough.
Joe, let me reverse the question. Fond du Lac and Outagamie have not done it. So why should Winnebago? They've got same budget troubles we have. Why should Winnebago do it without those surrounding counties doing it? Shouldn't we all do it together?
It may help psychologically,
Yeah.
but no. I think Les Beekle, who's the county executive in Fond du Lac,
Yeah.
has got a great idea.
Which is what?
In the budget for Fond du Lac, put in the same dollars for the court system,
Mhm.
the same dollars for the human services, and then give it to the state to run. And the
That's an
state
interesting
would
concept.
throw their hands up and get
Yeah.
hysterical. We can't, we don't have the money. Oh, really? That's right. Think of it that way. Give it to them. Here's the money. You take care of it. Talk about employees. And that's pretty smart, but that's, putting it back where it belongs.
All right.
So in my whole life, I don't like to think I'm negative. On the contrary, the sun shines every day someplace.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that I think it's sinful to have a concentrated effort because, as Kathy just said, no, it's a tax.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's it. That is the whole thing. That's the mental block, and dollars, people, programs, schmograms. It's a tax. Yeah? And our friend senator in Nina said Doyle had the chance to be a really great statesman and governor. And so if we, Wisconsin, had 1% sales tax, 6% instead of 5%, this horrendous deficit would be over in a year.
That's true.
What does that mean? Oh, it's a tax. Come on. Not the property tax, sales tax. If it was 1 penny. So Mike Ellis has got it right down there, along with, in my opinion, along with the campaign finance reform. You know, the efforts put forth to make something not happen is unbelievable compared to what are we here for, you know?
Right.
And,
So, okay.
but
So-
again,
Yeah.
if I leave you with nothing else, 45% of your tax bill is from the folks in Madison.
Right.
And we can't control that. And your idea is to send a message. We've got one county, Jackson County, southwest of us. It was right at the end. With all the mandated programs and their population, theoretically, they have to shut down the county. Think about it. Figuratively, literally. So the thought now is possibly suing the state or not performing the mandated
Well,
programs.
I think that's a good idea, and I would like to see all 72 counties sue the state, because, all right, that was an advisory referendum that passed, but still, over 80% of the voters. 2 commissions that you talked about.
Yeah, correct.
Everyone knows this is unjust. They know it's unjust.
Both of us have talked about it.
Right. So why, maybe it's time. All the counties have county attorneys. They
Well,
they should all get together, I think, and sue the state. Put pressure on these people down there.
Well, I'm still very active within the WCA.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is revisiting the editorial people throughout the state. Say, what happened? 86% said yes, it's the way it should be. 3 governors said yes, that's the way it should be. Nothing's happened, except for, once again, the temporary relief we got from when Tommy was still here. The judges and the DAs
Right.
are paid by the state, and that's fine. And we thought it would be a nice gradual
Sure.
break-in.
No, it's not going to happen.
No.
The county board supervisors have taken a ton of criticism in the last few years for essentially rubber stamping the budget, for having short meetings at the time the budget is being approved. Is that going to be different this year?
I think so, and I think David Albrecht was preparing us. I just think
How?
he feels a storm.
Yeah.
And I sort of do too, and it's just a gut instinct, and tell me I'm nuts, but I just, there's so much disdain in you know, amongst us. You know, here, we're the ones that have to do this. We've got to get this together one way or another. We've got to get this together. We can't stay in the problem. We've got to stay in the solution. And if I never say anything else, it's just that I am no better than the least seasonal employee in Winnebago County. And I'm part of it, and we all need to get through this. We all need to get through the tough times, the good times, everything.
But it sounds like
together.
you're willing to support major cutbacks to avoid any tax.
If that's what it takes. If that's what it takes. We don't really know what it's going to take. I mean, you know, the numbers keep
What about Joe's
changing.
argument? I want to go back to it one more time. What about Joe's argument? EAA brings a lot of people to this county.
Yes.
That's a gold mine for a half-cent sales tax, isn't it? All these people come from all over the world. Why wouldn't we take advantage of that?
Country
Kathy,
USA.
you don't think, I'm sure, that fewer people would come to EAA if we had that half-cent sales tax, do you?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so why not do it then?
That's not, because I don't think that's where it's going to be coming from, to be honest with you. I don't think that's where it's going to be coming from.
But that
I
would-
mean,
The majority
right,
of it
the
will be
majority.
coming- Okay.
I don't, that's it.
Right. And actually, Joe, you know, that too may be overestimated. I mean, a lot of those people who come for EAA don't necessarily spend their money in Winnebago County. Isn't that true? Lots of them come here, and they, you know, go to other parts of the state while they're here for 4 or 5 days, don't they? They go to Madison, they go to Green Bay, they go up north.
There's 8,000 people that came up 10 days ahead of time just to get the fields and things straight. 8,000 people. You know, they eat. They buy a few things.
Could the county, I don't know if it's possible legislatively to do this, could the county impose a sales tax for just that 7-day period if it wanted to? Could we have just like a special EAA week tax just to get that? Can the county do something like that?
I really don't know. We would ask Corporation Counsel, and he would naturally call Madison to find out, you know, and
I bet not.
No? Or during...
That almost sounds like a price gouging kind of thing. I mean, I see what you're saying, you know, make the outsiders foot our bill.
Yeah, just target the outsiders.
But I bet the answer to that would be a resounding no.
Yeah. Well,
But-
maybe it might be something to look into.
and also Country USA.
Right, in Country USA.
Well,
And
Ducks
also-
Unlimited.
Ducks, oh, yeah.
There are a number of conventions that come here that we could reap money from. That is to be sure. And I just wanted to make one point too, and we're quickly running out of time here, but you know, Joe, you've said a few times that the people who have called Kathy, you know, if they knew that their property taxes were coming down, do you know these folks who called you, were they homeowners? Because homeowners are the only ones who are going to see any property tax relief that there's going to be.
They were, my family is 150 years from Oshkosh. They you know, came over in the Oshkosh Mayflower, whatever that is, you know. and it was all a lot of their friends. It was a lot of my parents' friends saying, geez, you know, I really want you to think about this.
So
I
they
really
are
want
homeowners?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And the age demographic is a little bit, median age in Winnebago County is 33. They're higher than the median age.
And they're all Irish.
Okay.
We only wish we could only be that lucky.
All right. Well, I mean, you guys definitely have your work cut out for you. This
sure
is a huge budget book. I don't know how many pages it is, but it is huge. I know the Northwestern has been very good about, I think, getting the word out on both sides. This show has done that. Tony, your radio show has done that. I think folks know that there is some property tax relief that has been said will be forthcoming. It's going to be a tough vote, no matter which way it goes. And the budget hearings are going to be tough as well.
Yeah,
But thank you very much for being here, to both of you again. Tony, thanks. It's nice to have you back. And thanks to all of you for allowing us into your home for the last hour. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.
Thank you very much.